Strom Thurmond ran for president, we voted for him. We're proud of it. And if the rest of the country had followed our lead, we wouldn't have had all these problems over all these years either.
Those are the words that started a political firestorm for Mississippi Senator Trent Lott. The senator made those remarks during a birthday celebration for South Carolina Senator Strom Thurmond. Since then, a white-hot light has beamed on Lott. He has apologized, saying he was only trying to flatter the 100-year-old politician. But what the senator saw as harmless words may end up being political suicide. Tonight, he joins us to discuss the events of the last week, to clear up what he says are misconceptions, and to talk about his political future. We welcome Senator Trent Lott. Thanks for being with us, Senator. Greatly
Thanks for giving me this opportunity to visit with you and speak to your audience tonight.
Let me ask you first, before we get into the comments and the like, do you see, as many have characterized it over the course of the last couple of days, as you being in a fight for your political future?
Ed, I don't think that's really relevant. The important thing is to recognize the hurt that I caused and ask for forgiveness and find a way to turn this into a positive thing and try to make amends for what I've said and for what others have said and done over the years. I'm looking for this to be not only an opportunity for redemption, but to do something about it. And I regret it, but I'm now trying to find a way to deal with the understandable hurt that I have caused. You can, say it was innocent, but it was insensitive at the very least and repugnant, frankly.
That being said, though, part of is what you've suggested is you want to be able to undo some of the wrongs by virtue of legislation and the like. And if you're to do that, being majority leader will certainly help. Do you think that you can survive this fight, and will you indeed, as you suggested a couple of years ago, remain majority leader?
I do think so, but it's going to, depend on the realization that I am going to have to make changes and make amends and do something about it. I've been reaching out, talking to a lot of different people, African Americans, seeking their advice, pastors, media, business leaders, and looking for their suggestions of what we can do. J.C. Watts has been very helpful in making sure that I understand how people feel about what I said. And while he might have understood, and those that were there realized it was a very, lighthearted birthday celebration, it still was inexcusable. And then even today, I talked to John Lewis, Congressman Lewis from Georgia, and I said, I heard you on Meet the Press, and you talked about
inviting you to travel with him to go out.
But also another thing that I picked up on, the need for perhaps us to develop a plan, working together in a bipartisan way, bicameral and multiracial, young and old, men and women from all sections of the country, to have a task force of reconciliation, sit down and talk. A lot of, I think, what is wrong here is not enough communication, not enough understanding of how people feel and how, there has been immoral leadership in my part of the country for a long time. Progress has been made.
Were you a part of that?
Yes, I can't deny that. I believe that I have changed and that I'm trying to do a better job. But yes, I'm a part of the region and the history that has not always done what it's supposed to have done. But let me
do that before you go there. I promise you I'll let you get to that. But clear up a couple of things for me, if you will. First being, in the statement that you say was an off-the-cuff remark, you said we wouldn't have had all the problems that we've had over these years. Yeah. And as you know, it's been reported that 22 years ago, you essentially said the same thing about Strom Thurmond. What problems specifically are you talking about when you say that?
When I got to know Strom Thurmond, really know him, was in the, I guess, in the 80s, late 70s or 80s. I saw a senator that was committed in the fight against communism, that had fought Nazism, a senator that was for fiscal responsibility, and one that also thought that law and order was very important, protecting people of all races against crime. That's what his focus was.
But you also saw a senator that personified for years segregation.
Yes, but let me tell you.
Did you not, though?
I did. I did.
And you knew and understood what he stood for.
Absolutely, I did. And let me tell you what I said on the floor of the United States Senate about him in a serious moment, with thinking about what I was going to say. This is what I had to say about Senator Thurmond. I was one of 36 senators that spoke praising him. Not one condemned his past, but 6 of us did comment on it. And I said, Senator Thurmond is a different case in many ways. He is, of course, a different generation, and he exemplifies its strengths, just as he has worked to leave behind its shortcomings. He did reject the racist policies of the past and segregation, and he tried to, I think, tried to make amends for it and grow. And that's, I talked about the shortcomings that existed then.
And you know better than I, the concern is that perhaps you've not done so. That perhaps much of what we see today is style over substance. Let's be honest. You would not be sitting here with me this evening had it not been for this.
That's true, except that, you know, years ago, I've done interviews before with black entertainment television reporters, and but look, I don't want to get this into a position of making excuses. I accept the fact that I made a terrible mistake, used horrible words, caused hurt. I'm sorry about that. I've apologized for it. I've asked for forgiveness, and I'm going to continue to do that. But in answer to your question a moment ago, it is about actions more than words. As a majority leader, I can move an agenda that would have things that would be helpful to African Americans and minorities of all kinds and all Americans, but specifically aimed at showing African Americans that they have particular concerns and needs, and we have to advance an agenda that will help rural and urban areas, education, so that every child really does have an
Many of
education.
those African Americans believe, quite frankly, that that was you speaking in code to constituents with a wink and a nod saying, you know, the good old days. So you tell us so we won't have to have conjecture on what you meant. What did you mean when you said those problems?
I was talking about the problems of the defense and communism and budgets and government sometimes that didn't do the job. But again, I understand, Ed, that that was interpreted by many the way it was, and I should have been sensitive to that. I obviously made a mistake, and I'm going to do everything I can to admit that and deal with it and correct it. And that's what I hope the people will give me a chance to do, to show that there's an opportunity here. This is a wake-up call. Right. And this is an opportunity for me to do something about years of misbehavior.
Well, Senator, let's talk about those years of misbehavior, as you put it, and also go down your record, let you clarify some things. We'll do that right after this. More with Senator Trent Lott. Back in a moment. We're back with Senator Trent Lott. Senator, let's talk a little bit about why so many people find this hard to accept. And that, quite frankly, as you know, is your past. You have clearly admitted that you grew up in an environment that was segregated, that was, in fact, in many parts racist, that you yourself held the thought that segregation was the best way to go throughout a number of years in your life. Your voting record has not been the best by virtue of comparing it to what the civil rights community has suggested is the best way to go. We'll go down a couple of those votes. But tell me, was there a period of time in your life where you believed yourself now, in reflection, to have been either racist or prejudiced?
Let me go back to the roots that you referred to. First of all, you are who you are by virtue of where you're born. I didn't create the society I was born into. In fact, I was born to parents that had very meager means. My dad was a sharecropper. He raised cotton on somebody else's land. My mother did teach school in a three-room schoolhouse. When they came to Pascagoula, my dad worked in a shipyard. And so, there was a society then that was wrong and wicked. I didn't create it, and I didn't even really understand it for many, many years. Look, I feel very strongly about my faith, and I have grown over the years. But in order to be a racist, you have to feel superior. I don't feel superior to you at all. I don't believe any man or any woman is superior to any other.
But did you always hold that view?
I think I did. I mean, I grew up in a religious family, and I had concerns about what I saw over the years.
So
I didn't act on it when maybe I should have.
When you moved to hold blacks out of your fraternity, for instance, in college, Sigma Nu, you didn't feel superior at that time?
I did not, but that was wrong at that time. And I'm not condemning even the system. I was wrong.
What was your feeling
even
then?
Participation in that. You know, at the time, I was not as active a participant as some people would have said, but that's irrelevant now. That was 30, 40 years ago, and I have learned.
There is relevance to the past.
There is, oh, absolutely, but there is also change from the past and redemption. Ed, who among us does not mature? You know, my daughter a few years ago said, "Dad, you know, you've changed."